Mr. Marceau, we got to get into the biggest news of the week, that being CM Punk's departure. We're almost a week removed from it now. The news first broke on Saturday, mere hours before Collision in Chicago. It was quite the collision for sure for the crowd, but ended up being a pretty tame weekend as far as the crowd reactions go. Pro-Punk, anti-Punk, whatever. Seemed like they kind of got that out of their system before the shows went live. So much to discuss. Because so much has already changed since last Thursday. We heard on Monday, I think, from Justin Barrasso, Sports Illustrated, credible source. He said that Punk is probably, people are expecting on both sides, a response from Punk at some point. It might be soon. It could be today. It could be tomorrow. It could be next week. It could be next month. It could be next year for all we know. It took him 10 or so months to finally come out about his whole WWE departure back in late 2014. So it could be very similar. We might not hear from Punk on this legally or otherwise until that actually caused legal issues. Legal issues were not preventing him from talking back in 2014. That was his own choice. It might be a while before we hear Punk's side of things, but we've heard enough from Punk's side reportedly per Nick Hausman from House of Wrestling and sources like that, Fightful, PW Insider, constantly coming out with new things. I feel like I've read a CM Punk post online every day for like 3 or 4 months since he was on his way back to AEW, coming back to AEW, being back in AEW, and it's usually pretty negative. And now we're hearing WWE stuff. Before we go any further, Mr. Marceau, gotta ask the most obvious question. Your reaction to CM Punk's departure from AEW last weekend?
I'm not shocked, honestly. I feel like I saw rumblings after the whole all-in scuffle or whatever you want to call it. I feel like not that it was like definite, but I feel like the chatter had kind of gained some momentum that like this could be like his final straw with the company. I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like once it got to that point, I didn't really see going, like, what are you going to do, just suspend him again, and then we're going to do this in another year? So I think it was like the right decision at the time. I mean, I feel like this could have been fixed last year when the whole brawl out happened, and it just never got taken care of. But, I mean, at this point, there's clearly differences between the locker room. Like you said, they had to create a damn show to kind of fix the issues that were going on just momentarily. So, not surprised. I mean, I think this was very preventable, and it's people kind of aren't really glossing on that. I think they're kind of starting to harp on that on Tony Khan, like this was so preventable, and he just did nothing about it. But, I mean, once it came out and I saw the news, it wasn't, like, overly shocking.
So not surprising, but what you're saying is they made the right call.
Correct.
I completely agree. Listen, we had this discussion a week ago, so I'm trying not to repeat myself here. Literally 7 days ago. Did I think they would actually let go of him? No, I didn't. I honestly did not think Tony Khan would do what needed to be done in letting go of CM Punk. You will not find a bigger CM Punk mark out there than Tony Khan. I mean, myself as well. Listen, I'm a big CM Punk fan.
Whoa, what about yourself, man?
I'm throwing a swerve in there because I was probably going to say May, but no, I think Tony Khan is a little bit more of a mark for CM Punk than I am. If he's going out there making his return on Collision back in June, and from multiple sources reporting, Tony Khan in Gorilla chanting CM Punk's name as he walked to the back. Don't think it was the same scenario, the same situation, the same scene when he was beating up Jack Perry at All In about a week and a half ago. Coming off that incident, the guy had to go. And listen, there's other stories that have come out. I read the Regal one, which apparently was true. I mean, I found it very hard to believe when I first read that, just because I thought him and Regal were not necessarily close, but I knew Regal played a part in Punk getting his foot in the door in WWE and helping train him, so I thought they were pretty cool with each other. But I guess not if Punk didn't shake his hand when Regal literally first arrived in the company a year and a half ago. Now, the question is, why the fuck would that come out now and not a year and a half ago? That's just piling on. That's just silly. I'm not excusing the situation, but I mean, that alone isn't the reason for why he's gone from AEW. And that's also not the reason why William Regal is gone from AEW. That was made pretty clear. But they had to do what they had to do. Tony Khan loves CM Punk. He wanted CM Punk, Mr. Marceau, from the get-go. You go all the way back to 2019. You heard the stories then. The Elite and Tony Khan's, probably specifically TK, wanted Punk in the company. But this even predates AEW. Last week celebrated 5 years since the first All-In show. Literally last Friday. They wanted Punk on that show. The Bucks talked about it. Cody talked about it. On 2 different occasions, they wanted Punk for All In, and they wanted him for the first All Out in 2019. And on both occasions, Punk, I went back and read the excerpts of the interviews he was doing with ESPN at the time. He specifically said, and he also spoke with Ariel Helwani about it, that they did not make him an offer. They kind of made it sound like, and this is his side. Cody later said otherwise. But Punk said at the time, I don't like doing business over text. And they kind of fumbled the bag. They kind of dropped the ball by doing it over text instead of, I mean, Cody said that someone met him at a coffee shop. I don't know. Punk kind of made it sound like, oh, do you want to do this at the pay-per-view? Instead of offering, hey, listen, this is the amount of money that we can offer you. Do you want to come on and do something? And it was, Punk wasn't really flattered by that. It really wasn't until TK got involved himself. And it wasn't the Elite that brought him to AEW. It was Tony Khan. Tony Khan bringing it back into wrestling in 2021. Amazing moment at the United Center 2 years ago. One of the greatest returns in wrestling history. In the meantime, though, you have all this shit going on backstage. And I tweeted this the other day. I was listening to his first scrum back. He was doing a media call the first night he came back in the first dance in Chicago on Rampage. And he made the comment that when Brody Lee passed away, what really impressed him about the promotion was the fact that no one leaked anything about Brody's health status before he passed. A lot of people apparently in the company knew about Brody, in the fact that he was in the hospital. Maybe not the fact that he was going to pass away, but a lot of people knew that he was not in great health even at that point, and he was in the hospital for a while. Not a single person leaked that. It was a shock to everyone online when he passed away a couple months later. And he was impressed by that. He was impressed by the lack of leaks. But now they have more leaks than a fucking faucet in this company. I mean, even Punk himself, we hear stuff from his side, whether it be Punk or someone close to him, is leaking stuff on the daily about his transportation issues, like anyone gives a shit. I mean, that was its whole other own issue, but I mean, man, let me ask you this. What went wrong? What happened between 2 years ago when he first comes in the company, happy-go-lucky, loving wrestling again, getting along with the Elite seemingly on television, happy to be back, fuck WWE, like he was super pro AEW, sitting there, side by side, smiling with Tony Khan. What happened between then and now to get us to this point?
I don't know. It's like such a hard question to answer because I feel like everything was fine, and then it's just like once he kind of came in, I feel like the leaks started to come out. Like I don't know if it was just the Young Bucks or the Elite, or they just weren't happy with him, or like they clearly wanted him. I feel like but maybe they just didn't gel, or they didn't really know who he really was. They kind of just knew like the aura of CM Punk. I don't know. Like I just feel like leading into that brawl out issue, like there was a ton of issues going on that just like. I don't know if they didn't get resolved or there just was some like disagreement there, and it just like led into like this big leaking fest and people not getting along and just kind of like a whole shitstorm, and that led into that, and ever since then it just never got any better. And you had like Hangman putting his 2 cents in, and it just like kind of came out of nowhere, but then it just blew up.
It seems like that it kind of became clear after a while, and it's obviously evident now, but maybe he didn't know this when he first came there. That environment is not conducive to who CM Punk is. And that falls on both sides. I'm not saying Punk is not to blame here, because he absolutely is. We spoke about this before. We talked about it last year. I think, and again, I could be wrong, but someone thought, whether it be within the Elite or someone that they're friends with that was leaking the shit a year ago, and the dirt sheets, quote-unquote, have a lot to do with part of the problems as well, leaking stuff that's not true and putting every side out there. Why the fuck do we have to hear from Nick Hausman about, his like, who gives a shit about Punk's transportation? Like, no one asked. No one cares. I don't think that's really all that relevant. It might be relevant in the sense where he walked into that building at All In and he was frustrated for a reason. I mean, I guess, but I mean, it didn't seem like in those pictures that he took with fans, which, he took a picture with every fan that asked him for a picture, which he doesn't have to do. He didn't seem too upset in those pictures, but anyway. That's part of the problem. It just doesn't really seem like when he came to AEW, he understood how it works there in terms of it being seemingly very cliquey. Now, WWE's backstage environment, he also hated for different reasons. It seems like everyone there was walking on eggshells, whereas in AEW, no one has any fear. I don't want to say no respect, but no one really seems like they're all that afraid of Tony Khan and anything that he's going to do. They can kind of get away with whatever they want. In AEW, the greatest thing about the company is that they let people do what they want. Like, they have their own creative ideas and they have freedom. The worst thing about AEW to me is that they let people do what they want, and there's no real limitations. That goes for the matches. I said this last week when we spoke about it on the phone. Why the fuck would no one step in during that Orange Cassidy and Penta match, in the main event of Dynamite, which was a good match? They have 1 million producers backstage, as does WWE. How does no one step in and say, listen, we probably should not be doing 3 consecutive Canadian destroyers in this fucking matchup. How does no one say that? Does Tony Khan not say when they get to the back, listen, guys, we probably shouldn't be doing that because it just doesn't make much sense, just because it's going to pop the crowd? That's indie-level bullshit. I mean, if people like the indie-level bullshit, I mean, that's cool. I think AEW overall is a great promotion. But it goes back to the question, how do you even grow the brand from here? I mean, that's a whole other separate question as far as AEW itself and not really Punk-related. But Punk or no Punk, I think the company will be fine without him. But I just feel like, personally, for me, and again, I don't work there, I never have, but it just seems like their backstage attitude with, like, the elite versus everyone else and the childish antics and shit, and this has got to be a widespread policy. If you get into any shit going forward or antagonize anyone, you're going to be either suspended or fired or disciplined, whatever. I'm glad Jack Perry's still suspended, because he was part of the problem as well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I feel like you said, it definitely should be some kind of repercussions or like kind of a line set. I mean, Tony Khan's main thing was he felt threatened. That's why they got rid of Punk. I mean, it wasn't really like what happened. It was more like that kind of separate issue. But I mean, I don't understand how it gets to this point. And I think people are starting to now realize that Tony Khan like had a lot to do with it. But they just now are starting to say it. But I mean, I think, like you said, Punk leaving, I don't think it's really going to affect them that much. I just feel like, depending on like how other people's contracts are going to come up or people's decision to stay or not, maybe they're seeing the same things and they're just like, I'm going to be in that same situation, I might as well move on, or maybe this isn't for me, or maybe I want to go somewhere that's more structured, or I mean, I get it, like you get more freedom, but I mean, even if you have more creative freedom doesn't mean it's good. Like John Moxley has as much freedom as you want. I think his run rate is one of the worst things I've ever seen. So, I mean, it is what it is, but I mean, like you said before, I think I enjoyed his WWE run 1,000 times more than I liked his AEW stuff. I mean, it is what it is, but I mean, I think Punk leaving's not a killer, but it will be interesting to see what other people do once their deals are up or what's going on.
Yeah, because we haven't seen a lot of departures. We still don't know the reason why Cody Rhodes left AEW. We even said, I know he has said in the past on Raw and elsewhere, I wanted to win the championship, my dad never did, and I wanted to take a risk, and risk going to WWE and take a chance. That wasn't the sole reason. He said that in his documentary. He said that was a byproduct of the reason. And he said he's not going to say the reason. If that was the reason, he would have outright said that. He didn't. He said that he left for a personal issue. And at the time when he left, it was said that it was not because of Punk or the Elite. I don't know if that's a lie. I don't think it is. I don't think he left because of CM Punk. Because CM Punk at that point didn't really seem like he was stirring up any shit. I mean, it seems like there were some stories back then, but nothing too major to cause that much of a rift that would cause him to leave as an EVP. That's a whole other separate issue. But we really haven't had a lot of departures. So for AEW to go ahead and fire this guy, their biggest star, I think objectively, they have a great roster. You can argue this guy's better than Punk at this or that or whatever. Their biggest draw, single biggest draw, has got to be CM Punk. I mean, merchandise-wise, no one moved more merchandise than he did. So that's pretty much a fact. And I'll talk about the part that he plays, that Tony Khan plays in all of this. So again, to let Punk go is a pretty ballsy thing, and I'm glad they did the right thing because they were justified in doing so. And I'll get to Tony Khan's part in a second, but let me ask you this side question I forgot to ask you before. Do you think the timing of it was wise in that I've seen a lot of people say in the last week, why would he do this before the Chicago weekend? Why wouldn't he wait until next weekend? Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to be in the minority here, dude, and I'm going to tell you, I think it was a bold-ass, brave decision. Not what he said exactly, which I'll get to in a second, but going out in front of the crowd and telling them, listen, Punk's not going to be here. Do not expect him. He will not be here tomorrow. He's fired. I think it lowered expectations, because if you wait until now to announce it, or Monday or next weekend, people will come out of All Out saying, it was a great show, but listen, I kind of expected Punk, and that's the fans' fault. But why not get ahead of that and say, listen, he's not going to be here. He's gone. So I actually respect the fact he got ahead of it. And again, what investigation is going to take months on end? I mean, it's pretty clear what happened at All In. Let the guy go or let him stay. And I'm glad they let him go, and I'm glad they did it when they did. So were you a fan of the timing, or do you think it was dumb to do it when he did?
No, like you said, I feel like it lowered expectations, and I feel like it was probably a year too late, or a year. Like I said, I feel like the decision was the right one.
Yes. It
was basically at that point just rip the Band-Aid off, but like I said, it should never even got to that point. So I think the decision was right, but the statement he read was clearly written by like a fucking lawyer. I mean, it was clearly reading off the teleprompter, reading off a piece of paper. I mean, had more lawyer lingo than like it's like he like basically was like he was reading a contract.
I mean, speaking of which, do you think there's going to be legal repercussions coming out of this, and why Tony Khan said what he did in that statement? Because he wants to make it clear, listen, I did fear for my life. Does that sound like an exaggeration to me? Absolutely. And listen, I can't say whether he was threatened for his life, because he was there and I wasn't, but it sounds like an exaggeration. Do you think they included that on purpose and specifically emphasized that? He could have just come out there and said, listen, Punk's not here, I'm sorry, he's gone. He didn't have to explain it as much as he did. I'm not saying he should or shouldn't have, but he didn't have to, is my point. Do you think he did that for a reason? Because they specifically said, not only in the written statement, but on the video that aired on Collision, and I think in the building as well, that they fired him with cause, which is the key words there. I mean, they didn't just let him go. I mean, they're not even going to pay him out for the rest of his contract. Again, those are the key words. Do you think he said that on purpose so they can prevent the lawsuit coming up? Do you think that's inevitable?
No, yeah. I mean, the way that they said it's clearly for lawyer speak. I mean, fear for your life, that's, I mean, unless CM Punk had a fucking machete in his hand or an AK-47, I mean, I don't know how you'd be fearing for your life. You had plenty of people back there. It's not like it was him and Tony Khan one-on-one. Like, is it Samoa Joe was there or other talent were there? I mean, it seems a little dramatic, but I also, like you said, I think for legal purposes, like you said, it gives you cause, and it is what it is. But I think it was highly, highly dramatic. I mean, I doubt Tony Khan was ever in a fight or a confrontation. I mean, he's a rich kid. I don't think he's ever probably been in a circumstance to get like that. So maybe he was feared for his life, but I feel like it was more saying that for lawyer speak to give cause, like he was afraid, and that's why we did it.
Listen, I know he wasn't in the building. He wasn't in the room, rather, when the brawl out incident happened last year. I know he was doing the media scrum at that point, kind of picking up the pieces after what CM Punk, the pipe bomb that he dropped during that scrum. But there were innocent parties involved in that, too. I mean, Punk's dog was there. I know it's an animal, but, still he had his dog there. That woman, Mega Parka, I don't want to say legal advisor. I forgot her actual role, but she's like their legal representative or whatever in AEW. She was there, apparently. Christopher Daniels was the one that broke it up. Why is it that this draws the line with Tony Khan as far as this is what causes us to fire Punk, whereas the incident that happened last year might have been even worse? I mean, we heard sides of the story this past week with the Jack Perry thing, that he was lunged at or whatever. Again, why would Punk even have to lunge at Tony Khan if he wasn't involved? I don't know. That whole thing is weird to me. I'm not saying he's lying or whatever, or the stories are lying, but why would he be lunging at him? Threatening to quit makes sense, but like lunging at Khan for what? It was Jack Perry that way. Again, back to my original point. I'm all over the place here, but why is it that this is the incident, the brawl with Jack Perry, is what causes Punk to get fired, but not an incident that was probably worse a year ago? That chair is being thrown around. This fucking moron Ace Steel is biting people, and he still works there. But this is what draws the line. I guess because he was there and he was a part of it. I feel like he should have had the same attitude towards this a year ago. I mean, I know you just said that, but I'm just echoing those thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, maybe it's just, like you said, it's more precedent now. It's like it's the second time something like this has happened. I don't know. Like I said, maybe they were out of the CM Punk business. I don't know. I really don't know. Like I said, it seems like last year's was worse, so I don't know if it was just like, hey, like this happened, we'll move on. Like now it's like become a pattern, and they're just like, we're out of the CM Punk business and just don't want to deal with them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the lunging thing, I feel like it could be like, you could just go up, like, turn around and be like, hey, I'm fucking out of here, or I quit, or like, that, like, define lunging. Like, that could be like him, like, turning and, like, moving his body, like, it may be like a masculine or like a forward way, but like, define lunge. I feel like lunge. When I hear lunge, I feel like I'm like going to grab you is like a lunge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but like, did he still just like turn to him and say, you know what, I'm out here, I quit, and like Tony Khan like shit his pants? Like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like I said, I feel like it got to the point that, I mean, he's clearly just on the EVP's side. I mean, we don't know why Cody left, but I mean, there were rumors before he left that they weren't getting involved, and CM Punk and them haven't got involved, and now CM Punk's gone. So I don't know. I feel like at this point, just they might as well just move on because they're just not gonna. It just doesn't seem like it's ever gonna get any better.
I think he's on everyone's side, and I don't think he should be on anyone's side at all. I think he should be on his own side as a boss and as the president of the company to not always give these people what they want. I feel like he gives everyone what they want. And I'm not saying he doesn't turn things down or say no to people. I mean, he doesn't renew every contract. He let go of Sonny Kiss's contract recently. He didn't re-sign them for the the sake of re-signing them. They're never on TV, so why would you re-sign them? He made the right call and didn't re-sign the contract. It just makes as much sense as that. But like the Bucks re-signed recently. The entire elite re-signed. Great. I think they should have, and that's a great get for AEW. But why are they still EVPs? Coming off the shit from last year, and it doesn't sound like it's improved at all. Again, going back to Tony Khan's part that he played in all of this, I'm not saying he was going for sympathy, but when he says, I feared it was the one situation, he said this in the building to the fans, and he said that on Collision in that pre-tape promo. So he said it twice. And I don't know about in the press release, but he definitely said it twice. Where he said that I feared for my life. The only incident where I've been to a wrestling show and my life was in danger, whatever. I don't have any sympathy for him at all in that case. Again, not that he's asking for it, but as I tweeted a couple days ago, and as other people have said, I don't care because you brought this upon yourself. If you let the guy go a year ago, you would have never been put in that position for that incident at all in to even happen. I mean, they had to switch matches around possibly. I mean, they ended up not doing that. Punk ended up going on first and actually winning, which is kind of funny in retrospect. And they had a great match and whatever. But like that wouldn't have even happened if you either let go of the guy. And listen, I'm all for second chances. There's a possibility if Punk was let go at that point, he would have either been back by now, re-signed by the company after some extensive therapy or something. The guy's clearly got anger issues. I don't know him personally, but it just seems like, again, not to make any claims, but that's just how it seems to me. I don't know if I would say mental health issues. That's what Kevin asked. I don't know if I'd go that far, but he's clearly got some trust issues or something, and he has admitted as such before. If you're going to bring the guy back, which is what he did in Collision, instead of, I mean, we knew it was just a disaster waiting to happen. When you give the guy his own show with his own little friends, and then he's banning people from the building, I don't give a fuck if Ryan Nemeth is there or not. But if you're going to fly the guy in and then tell him at the door, no, you're not needed here, because Punk was upset over a tweet, which I'm not saying he wouldn't be bothered, but enough to get the guy out of the building is pretty fucking dumb. I mean, that is so stupid. I mean, I just really feel like he need to be more of a boss, and we said this earlier. I don't think we had it on the recording. I think we said it before we hit record here, that as a boss, with that scheduled elite meeting that was supposed to happen in Atlanta right before All In, because he knew they would all be under the same roof for that pay-per-view, whether it was canceled or was never scheduled, it seems like the common denominator is that the elite didn't want to go through with it. If they were talent, okay. This guy wronged you, you don't want to deal with him, whatever. But even as EVPs, it's their responsibility to at least hear him out, not necessarily forgive him, but hear him out. And it's Tony Khan's responsibility to make sure that they're all in the same building, under the same roof, coexisting, and not saying, oh, you don't want to do the meeting? Never mind. It's okay. I didn't really want to do it either. I mean, I just read that shit and I'm thinking, that's completely ridiculous.
No, I completely agree. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be a boss, but, I mean, like, even regardless if they don't want to, if they don't even get, if they're talented get along with Punk, guess what? He's the boss. If he says you're working with, you're working with. If not, there's the fucking door. I mean, it's just, it's so childish, and I just don't understand how it got to this point. But like I said, I don't feel bad for Tony Khan. He put himself in this position. If you feel bad for him, then you're just an idiot. Yeah,
no, I mean, this shit should have never happened. He should have gotten everyone involved in the incident in the same place at the same time a year ago. There should have never been any lawsuit about it. I mean, there could be a lawsuit, I guess, but have them talk it out, work out their issues, not put them in different classrooms because they just don't get along at lunchtime. I mean, this is fucking ridiculous. It should have never gotten to this point. And I reiterate that because I hope it doesn't happen again with someone else. Who's to say this doesn't happen again? Again, Punk is a special case. He's had history with this sort of shit for decades. This is not anything necessarily new. But, I mean, there needs to be more structure here. I mean, with Andrade and Sammy Guevara, for example, and Sammy Guevara and Eddie Kingston, they put it on that a show they did, the behind-the-scenes show a couple months ago, Sammy apologizing to Eddie. I could be wrong. I watched the show. It seemed like Sammy did that because he felt like it would have been the right thing to do. It did not seem like Tony Khan had a sit-down meeting with the two of them and said, listen, you better get along, and we're going to work together here, because if you don't, you guys are gone. You can't just go out there and fight people. Eddie Kingston, same thing. He seemed like he kind of went off. Sammy Guevara seems like a fucking little wiener. But, I mean, if you're going to... You can't fight people, though, especially at work. And you got to work the shit out like grown men. You know there's been backstage brawls in wrestling companies for decades, and there's shit that we don't even hear about. But then they either work together for the betterment of the company, the betterment of the business, the betterment of the fans, or whatever. And if they don't work together after that, at least they're not causing more issues. Tony Khan never nipped this in the bud when he should have. That was my biggest takeaway from this whole thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I just hope that they can figure it out. like I said, Sammy Guevara has been in multiple incidents. I mean, I guess now that Punk's gone, there should be no drama. So we'll see where it goes. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is all Tony Khan's fault.
Hey, Mark Henry said it himself on Busted Open Radio the other day. And he was saying it sarcastically, obviously, but he said, listen, the problem is gone. CM Punk is gone, the problem is gone. There should be no more complaining. Not within, like, the fans will complain regardless about whatever. But within the company, if that was your biggest problem, you thought he was the biggest thing holding back AEW, there should be no more issues, right? And I guarantee you there will be. Because Tony Khan did the right thing and justifiably fired CM Punk and put on his big boy pants and did something about it. But, I mean, honestly, I felt like he was kind of forced to. He even said that he had to... I mean, honestly, listen, I'm not in that position. I don't run a company, and it's not an easy choice because that's your biggest star. You shouldn't even have to get a second and third opinion from an outside legal counsel as to whether to get rid of this guy. Why would he even have to get anyone else's opinion? The answer should be fucking no. If this was WWE and that happened in front of Vince would have fired your ass right there and you would never see that guy again. How would he even have to go through these? I guess it's a legal channel thing. Again, contracts, that's probably why. I get it. But, I mean, it should be an instinct reaction. No, this guy does not work here anymore. He should not work here anymore. But I know Tony Khan probably doesn't think like that because he's a mark for all these people and wants to be their best friend.
No, yeah, I completely agree.
That's not the end of it, though. Rumors came out a couple days later that he might be headed to WWE, or that he at least wants to go to WWE. No word on whether WWE would be interested. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful did note that there's a lot of people in WWE on the talent side, at the top of the roster, that do not like CM Punk. And listen, I don't know any of them personally, and I don't know this for a fact, but we know Rollins made comments a couple months ago, earlier this year. I thought that was in character. There's a chance that it couldn't have been in character. Roman Reigns has made a lot of comments about CM Punk. Doesn't fucking want him here. Doesn't think he's a draw. Is that a shoot or is that a work? Could be a bit of both. We don't know. The report indicated that Punk would want to have worked, because it was from late last year, not the report, but it was about Punk. If the AEW thing didn't work out, I guess maybe to stick it to AEW, I guess, he was going to go to WWE and work with Kevin Owens, or wanted to work with Kevin Owens. And if that was the case, I mean, Kevin Owens is another guy. He's talked about Punk before. They had an incident back in Ring of Honor 20 years ago. Is Owens over it now? Probably. Is Punk over it? I don't know. I'm not really sure. Punk doesn't really seem like the guy to get over stuff. If you wrong him, or he thinks that you have wronged him even once, he will never get over it and hold a grudge. He's a big grudge guy, it seems like. William Regal didn't even do anything, and it seemed like he kind of disrespected him by not shaking his hand about a year and a half ago. I mean, it stewed for Triple H. Like, well, what is that about? It just seems silly. Your thoughts on your reaction to the news that Punk may want back into WWE, and the fact it's all funny because this was the same guy, even as recently as months ago, did not like the way that WWE ran things, didn't think it'd be any different with Triple H in charge. The same guy that we heard about earlier this year going to Raw to apologize or talk to Triple H. I don't know, the whole thing is very funny to me, and I'm a Punk guy too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested. I mean, I don't think they need to bring him in. I mean, the thing is, like, he wants to come. Where else is he going to go? What's he going to go to fucking Impact? So, I mean,
he could just never wrestle again.
Really, a lot of places for him to go to begin with if he wanted to wrestle. I mean, I don't think he'd even go to New Japan because they have a relationship with AEW, so I doubt he'd go there. But I mean, it's a possibility. It's not like I overly want to see it, but I mean, I think it's a possibility. I want to bank on it. I don't know. I just have a feeling it won't happen for some reason, but I mean, I think it's definitely an opportunity. I mean, people could be mad at it, but I think in the WWE system, they would just have to deal with it.
Do you think Punk is a liability to WWE if he goes there? And if he is a liability, which I think he is, do you think that it's worth them having him? Where, to me, and I'll just say this quickly, I feel like if they were to bring him back, and I'm not advocating for it, I want to make that clear. I'm just saying if he were to come back, I'd be fine with it because I'm a fan of the guy. But I think it's manageable. I know I'm well aware of everything that he was involved in AEW, and probably more that we're not even privy to yet. The key word there being yet. But I think in WWE, like I said earlier, they at least have a structure to where, listen, if he's out of line at least once, I don't think their PR team's going to, like the AEW All Out scrum last year, you didn't see their PR team really stepping in and doing shit. Tony Khan sat right next to him and didn't say anything. If Triple H was sitting right there, or Triple H was in the back, or we know WWE's PR team, they're pretty on point with stuff. I don't think he'd be able to get away with that. I'm not even sure if he thinks he could get away with it. I think he got away with a lot of the stuff in AEW because he knew he could. And that goes with everyone in that company. In WWE, they're a little too strict, but at least they're strict enough to where he knows, hopefully, that he wouldn't get away with that shit in that company.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, I don't know if they do it or not, but I think it'd be more smoothly than it has been in AEW. And worst case scenario, if it goes and doesn't work out, then they just move on. I mean, I feel like there's no I don't really think there's really any negative him coming in. And if it doesn't work out, it just doesn't work out. It's not like he's running back to AEW anyway. So I think it's worth the listen. I mean, I wouldn't say don't do it. I don't think it'd be dumb to bring him in, but I think you just depend on what's going on.
I just don't think, listen, he has bad publicity in the sense that it seems like he's a pain in the ass to work with, but that was also the case 10 years ago in WWE. And if they were willing to bring him back, and the whole thing for the longest time was that they probably would have brought him back. He had conversations with people in WWE when he was considering coming back to wrestling 2 or 3 years ago, and he didn't go there because he didn't think, oh, it's still the same shit, it's still run the same way, they don't give a fuck, and all this other stuff. Listen, I know Triple H is largely in charge of creative now. I don't think it's the environment backstage is that much different now than it was a couple of years ago, especially with Vince still being in that company. I really don't think it's that different. But if he's willing to go back to stick to AEW and say, listen, guys, fuck the Elite, I'm going to go make money over here and do good business for them, I think they should at least hear it out. Because, again, I think it's different bad publicity than if they brought back someone that got into, he was involved in legal trouble. But we're not talking about Tessa Blanchard, who was Punk wasn't canceled. There's a difference there. Punk is a pain in the ass to work with, and he created a lot of drama backstage, but he didn't do anything that was cancelable, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to defend the guy, but I'm just saying I think there's a difference. I think they can still make money off of him. It's not like they're bringing back Alberto Del fucking Rio, who was accused of hitting his wife. And I say accused because I'm not sure it was proven, because I think she took her statement. Whatever happened with him, with that piece of work. There's no use in bringing that guy back. Punk, I think they can make money off of him. He's still relevant now. We know that from his AEW run. And if they can keep him in check, then I think it's worth listening to. He might be miserable, but listen, he also wants to stick at AEW. The guy's going to be miserable either way. I mean, if there was any place to make him happy, it would have been AEW, because he was given the keys to the kingdom there, and he still found a way to fuck it up. In WWE, I think the thing is hysterical, because the company sued him, and he sued them back, and all this other shit, and he left. He thought the company almost killed him. But it goes back to what we've always said. They always come back eventually. Doesn't matter if it's the Warrior, Bruno, they all come back eventually. And I don't think Punk is going to be any different. I'm not advocating he is coming back, but I think there's a pretty good chance we see him back at some point, even if it takes another year or two, but it will probably be before that.
No, I completely agree. I don't think there's any... like I said, even if he came in and it didn't work out after 6 months or a year, I still think they can make money off him, that it would be worth to try it.
Survivor Series is too soon, right, in Chicago? Or no? If he was legally able to, that is.
Yeah, I was going to say, realistically, it just depends on his... Yeah, I think depending on his non-compete, if he has one, I'm not sure how it works legally with the firing or just cause or whatever you want to call it. So, if you could get him, I think it makes sense. I wouldn't say no to that. Yeah. If you could get him, I think it would be worth it.
Show closes, Roman Reigns walking back up the ramp and confronts CM Punk. Hey, fuck finishing the story, right?
Jesus.
Hey, your next 2024 winner of the Royal Rumble, CM Punk. The same match that he left in 10 years ago. He's back almost exactly 10 years to the day and wins the whole thing. Hey, listen, to quote that little kid from Angels in the Outfield, it could happen.